All right.
All right, then we will call this meeting of the Public Works Committee to order. We have a quorum by the skin of our teeth, and therefore we can do business. The first item of which are the minutes of our February 28th meeting.
And just for the record, Bob, maybe I'll just read that we have present for committee members, Bob Lyons, Robert Burke, Carrie Schaffner, and Susan West.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So sorry for the interruption. Yep.
All right, minutes of February 28th.
This is Robert Burke. I would make a motion to approve the minutes of February 28th.
Is there a second to Robert's motion?
This is Susan, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of February 28th signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the February 28th minutes are approved. The next item is a set of minutes from the Joint Public Works Committee, Bike, Ped, and Transit Committee meeting that was held on Monday. This is just our Public Works Committee minutes from that meeting.
This is Susan, I move approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Robert. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion with respect to those minutes? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those minutes are approved. Sean, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up to the minutes of February 28th for just a moment. Would you record me as an abstention on those, please, because I was not at that meeting?
Sure. Yep.
They don't require a quorum to be approved.
Just a majority vote.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'd appreciate that. All right. Our next item is, it's not on my screen at this point.
It will be soon now.
All right. Middleton Beach Road Reconstruction Public Hearing. I guess I will call the public hearing to order. And this public hearing is happening because there was one property owner who was inadvertently omitted from the public hearing notice that happened of the hearing on January 24th. Is that property owner present this evening?
I do not see Larry or Karen Berkelo signed in, but I'm wondering if any other residents of Middleton Beach Road would want to address the committee on this topic for the public hearing. This is about the assessments for the Middleton Beach Road and Mendota Avenue project.
This is Jenny Corwin. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jenny. Yes.
I mean, this doesn't really impact me or the other residents on Middleton Beach Road. So, yeah, nobody's there really representing that property, I understand.
Well, and it's, we're a bit after the fact here anyway, since the bids have gone out and the contract has been awarded. Do you think, Sean, there's no purpose at this point, is there, in having Dan Perry go through and do an overview of the project again, since everyone?
Well, I would say for sure, if nobody's interested in addressing this topic, we don't need to go through what you've already heard. That would just be wheel spinning.
All right, well, we'll give it one last shot. Does anyone wish to address the committee with respect to the assessment schedule? Hearing none, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed then, and we will move on to our next item.
All right, so the next item is follow-up action from the public hearing on January 24th and the one just concluded, which would be then adopting or approving, the engineer's report, which was revised now to include that one property that had previously been missed, and then to recommend to Finance Committee and Common Council adoption of the final assessment resolution in the packets. Oh, Actually, I've got my, I didn't have to read it to you.
Is it one motion that would encompass both of those then, Sean?
Typically, we have done that all as one thing, yes.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion to approve the engineer's report and to recommend to Finance Committee and Common Council adoption of the final assessment resolution contingent upon satisfaction of the city attorney, if that's, which is what I read here. So that would be my motion.
All right.
Is there a second to Robert's motion?
This is Susan, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion with respect to this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation of the Finance Committee and the council.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to log off. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thanks again, Ginny.
Thanks, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
So long. I was going to say, Jenny spent so much time here, she could have been a de facto member of the committee if we didn't have a quorum.
No,
That's
thank
true.
you. No, thank you.
The pay is the
I'll leave
same.
that to you.
Yeah. Okay, that takes us to our next item. Did Dan Perry leave too?
I'm still here if needed.
Amazon.
Otherwise, I will hop off, but I think I'm
Okay,
out.
I mean, I think you're free to go as well if you would like. There's not another item on the agenda. I don't think that
No, that's it.
changed to you. So I think we're through the Middleton Beach Road issues.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Dan.
Mike. All right, Sean, Pleasant View Road Reconstruction Amendment number 2 to the Design Engineering Services Agreement.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things going on. One, as we're wrapping up final design, staff has asked Strand Associates for a couple of cleanup items. Notably, some of the property acquisition stuff is going to need some exhibits and legal descriptions for our city attorney to help prepare documents for council action. And the other one is if the city intends to assess any of the improvements. A year ago, the Common Council went on record saying we did intend to, but not in an official capacity, just conceptually to follow Madison's lead. We would need an assessment roll prepared. And while that's been on my list of things to do for the past couple of months, it needs a lot of measurements that really exist only in the computer-aided drafting system that Strand has. So they would be in a much better position to efficiently put that together. And my schedule has not allowed me to even start on that. So I would recommend allocating at least some money hourly, not to exceed $5,000 for miscellaneous final engineering services. Then there's a separate issue that I didn't, it's in the amendment, number 2, it's in the memo that I prepared and put in the packets. I was thinking of putting it just before the Common Council and Finance Committee, I guess, which gets into a pedestrian bridge aesthetics issue, although some fallout from that gets into design issues. So if the committee wants to talk about that, we certainly can under this topic.
Committee, what's your pleasure?
I would like to talk about that, but I think before we talk about that, I think we can put the one motion to bed, which I would do now, which is I would make a motion to recommend to the Finance Committee and Common Council approval of a contract amendment with Strand Associates in an amount not to exceed $5,000 to do that work that Sean was talking about.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second to Robert's motion?
This is Carrie. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion with respect to that motion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will so recommend to the Finance Committee and the Council. Now, with respect to the other issue,
Yeah, Sean, why, I guess I get it, I get it. Who's driving the aesthetic change to this pedestrian bridge?
Yeah, and let me get to a drawing of the difference between the two. This is what's in our final design right now. This is what we've turned over to DOT because this is a DOT project. And they'll be, if they haven't already, turning it over to Federal Highways for their review. And when the, I'm sorry. When the, we have a TIF planning group, and when they took a look at that, they said, well, this is notably on an incline, which is true. Many such bridges are, but there was a preference to try to make this bottom chord, the lowest member of the bridge, look more level, even though the deck itself will, of course, have to rise. But it can be to some degree hidden behind this mesh. And let me get to an alternate picture of that if I can. There. If that's showing up on your screens, okay?
It
Yeah.
is.
Okay, so it could be designed in a different way so that this bottom member of the bridge shows up more level, not quite, but more. And then the deck is still just on an incline, the part that people are walking and riding on, but behind the mesh. One of the changes, of course, would have to be that you kind of see this red arc that comes to a red vertical piece. That corner has to be above the deck. So this vertical member has to be lifted up, and then the arc would just be higher up here. And then it probably makes the most sense to raise this vertical member by an equal distance. So here the deck would start off well below this joint, and here it would have to end up with this joint above the deck height. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yep.
Okay, so this isn't a final drawing, but this is close. This is representative of the aesthetic issue. That on the one hand, the deck would just parallel the bottom chord, but the whole bridge looks inclined. And on this one, the bridge superstructure doesn't look as inclined, but the deck still just would be. Now the fallout is when state was looking at it, and we just found this out, what that effectively means is that this retaining wall needs to be 2 feet shorter than it was going to be. And I have a separate drawing of that we can look at. In fact, let me just hop back to there. Okay, so this is kind of zoomed in on that corner where this retaining wall gets a little bit shorter, but then this slope also gets a little bit steeper because as this wall is going down, the grass back here just needs to get steeper. And that's where I talked about a 4-to-1, so 4 feet horizontally for every foot vertical, which is a pretty common slope to be able to safely ride a lawnmower on. Becomes more like 3-to-1, so it's 3 feet horizontal for every foot vertical. And that's kind of dicey, where you find equipment starts drifting down slope as you're going back and forth, especially if the grass is wet or bumpy. And sometimes that's okay if at the bottom of the slope we've got a big wide flat area like a path or something, that can be okay. We don't mind so much drifting, but when it's above a retaining wall like this, we would want some sort of safety mitigation design to take care of that, because we don't want a 3-to-1 slope at the top of a wall, if that makes sense. So those are the choices. And again, I really laid it out just before the council because it started out just as an aesthetic issue, but as I was putting the packet together, it became mixed in with some design issues.
Well, Sean, you missed the obvious solution, which is to go back to the original design for the bridge and just make the roadway underneath tipped at like a 10-degree angle so that the roadway matches the angle of the bridge.
And no one will drive on this road.
Okay,
Uh,
you can tell from my facetiousness that I am not a big fan of throwing all the engineering into a tizzy to change. I don't even know what the angle is. But let's say it's dropping it from like a 6 or 7 degree angle down to a 2 or 3 degree angle, visible bridge understructure, I guess, framework.
It's probably in the ballpark. I'm thinking if it's 2 feet vertical and the road's, I don't know, give or take 50 feet wide, we're in the ballpark of 4%.
Okay. So yeah, talking in grades, it even if we do what was kind of asked, it still looks tipped to me, though less tipped. And it seems to add enough other concerns that my thought is that we should recommend sticking with the original design, saving hopefully the $16,500 of additional costs, if that can be saved. That's the cost difference I saw was 16.5, or maybe that's already spent.
Well, the thing is, that was if Strand was going to redesign the bridge, but they're going to have to redesign the bridge and the retaining wall. And
maybe that slope.
And the cross-section cut sheets that go anywhere near here. So their design fee is going to get bigger than the number they had thrown out. And again, this all kind of comes from the WISDOT feedback at the last minute. But this is a very expensive retaining wall. So if you're looking just at dollars and cents, even though we would spend more on redesign and have to do something as yet unfigured up at this slope, this wall savings by making it 2 feet shorter could offset a lot. It might get into the ballpark of a wash. Strand was working on some numbers, but they don't have them yet.
Okay.
Well, personally, I think it's much ado about nothing. I don't find the original design at all distracting. It is at an angle, but the new one, the revised one, is at an angle too, although not as much. And there were some concerns that WISDOT had with the alternative alignment. And there were also, as I read your memo, Sean, some concerns expressed by the manufacturers of the bridge about how these things were going to get put together. And then you've got the worker safety issue, and all of that to me seems like it's probably not worth the effort to do. But
I should clarify, the bridge manufacturer said that they can fabricate that, but they said this joint has to be above the deck to make it work. So they would need to modify that part of the design. It was WISDOT who thought this is going to get into some oddities with fabrication, but the fabricator themselves didn't say that.
okay.
That was WISDOT.
Sean, is this alternative going to have an impact on bikers in terms of safety? Coming up to
No,
it.
they would just see the deck. They won't see the underside. If you mean bikers on the bridge.
But I mean in terms of them bikers riding, where you're concerned about the slope for people mowing the areas and so on, is it going to be more risky for the bikers too?
Only if they go off the path. The path is way west of here. So there's a lot of grass between here and the path, which is way off the page. And in between those two things, it just, when it's got a certain slope to it, that's okay. And then when it starts to get really steep, then people slide. Now, if the bicyclists all stay on the path and don't go into the grass, that's fine.
But if they do go in the grass, they're in trouble.
Well, I would recommend to them to fall over. That'd stop them. But otherwise, yeah, we would have to put in some kind of railing system and then constantly be maintaining that. So
Okay,
Not my favorite to put more fencing up.
No.
I like the original version then.
I agree.
I do too. Anyone else?
I agree as well.
Okay,
Okay.
it's unanimous. So I guess I would make a motion to recommend to council, who I think maybe finance too, but whoever's making the final call, council, I would assume, to stick with the original plan and not to cause everything to be redesigned for this aesthetic feature.
Robert, make it both for council and finance, because it'll
Okay.
go to finance first.
Okay, I'll make it for both.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Oh. I'll second,
This is Carrie.
or
Oh,
like Carrie.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation to finance and the council. All right. Thank you.
Back to our agenda, actually, if you don't mind, since Sean Ellsworth is still on the line, could we skip ahead to the 5-year street improvement plan?
Sure, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay. He produced that and will be in the best position to hear this directly that way. I can shuffle some papers just a bit. Okay. So let me jump to that. And zoom in a bit. Is that legible on some screens?
Yes.
It is.
Fine.
Okay. So like I said, Sean put this together for us, and he has been every year for quite a long time. This year, I think, our really big changes are that Middleton Beach Road bumped Middleton Springs Drive, and that ripple effect goes through the whole 5-year plan, as it always has. But as planning documents go, we had been doing reasonably well at sticking to things the last couple of years, and this one really upset the apple cart. When you're trying to balance keeping projects in neighborhoods, meeting the $2 million budget, deferring things from one plan to the next as little as possible. There's a lot of things that Sean juggles for us, and he makes it look easy because he gives us the final version instead of the interim versions. But this is his recommendation, which we're now making to you. If there's a different view you want to go to, just let me know. He's got in the existing map, the proposed map, and a listing of all proposed roads, but he summarized it too for us to just say, well, what's different?
John, it looks good.
Yeah, so my only question, and make sure I'm looking at the maps right, the map right on the very next page from where you are, this is the newest updated version. Am I reading this correctly?
I can see
Correct.
it too far.
That map and then the list below are from this month. So that's the current proposed new 5-year plan.
And I want to thank you that it looks like you got that major portion of Elmwood actually moving from 2024 to 2023, which is something else we've been hearing about recently. So
Yeah.
I think that could be helpful that you were able to bump that one up a year, whereas a few other of the roads actually get bumped by, it looks like 1 year, the other, backwards.
The downside of that one, Robert, is that that portion closer to downtown got pushed all the way out to 2027, but
I did see that, and I assume, with all of the talks of a downtown civic campus, there may be other reasons to have that one kind of lingering a little longer anyway. But the portion of Elmwood east of the immediate downtown
Mhm.
looks like it might be worked on in 2023 if we stick to this plan, which I think
Over here.
is good.
Yeah, that one that would, maybe in 2020, we've been really hoping to do that downtown for a while, so hopefully next year that works out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed or not, but we'd also be doing that parking lot for the library.
Sean, is that completely a municipal parking lot, or does the Hubbard Avenue Diner have some ownership interest in that as well?
They do have some ownership in that. It would be a project that the city would do with them, but we would run the project.
But they would be billed for part of the cost of it?
Yes.
Right. They've been asking us for years to do a joint project with them, and it's never been in our budget. And we've always said, you can't do it and then bill us. We have to do it and then bill you.
Yeah. And I didn't put pen to paper on the cost of their portion, but I would guess if we're in the 20 to 25% of that project cost.
And that project cost was 200,000 or something, wasn't it?
Correct. We would address some of the sidewalk concerns there that we've had for a while with that, so.
Nice. Real quick question, Sean, this is Robert again. You talked about the municipal parking lot that's shared sort of with Hubbard Avenue. What about the municipal parking lot just south of there on abutting Terrace?
So the Terrace Avenue parking lot,
Yes,
that we would not be doing anything with.
that's probably wise since,
Mhm.
again, there's been a few different discussions of what happens to that property if a civic campus comes in.
Yeah, the civic campus was talked about a number of years ago, and that kind of died out. And we had done some temporary repairs in the library parking lot, but it's so heavily used that it's just become a point that we need to address it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, I think this looks great, and thank you for your work, Sean.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, it does look good.
Yeah, I have
Mhm.
one other question about Elmwood. So if it's 2023, Sean, when would we start? We'd start planning this year for that design, correct?
Yeah, this is a resurfacing, so it's not a complete reconstruction where we're doing underground work. So it's a lot less design, but I would be out probably in August. I would start marking that up and planning the project for next year.
That's good to know. I've been meaning to wonder if we know about the utilities, but there aren't any utilities east of Bristol that are in need of work.
I don't believe so. And I'm going off memory of 72 miles of road, but I don't believe we do.
Oh, I'm counting on it. Could you confirm that with Dave?
I
that
can, yeah.
That this piece is good? Okay, because we might want to get, well, I don't know if these intersections were of high end interest, but some traffic calming features on Elmwood Avenue just as a corridor. And
Okay.
that would be helpful to know.
All right. Well, I'll
And ask them about the piece west of Bristol too, while you're at it.
that piece, I have that on my maps. I can look it up, but
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Sean, that's what I was getting at, is like wondering if there would be opportunities for traffic calming during that, if it was a resurfacing project or not. So thanks for looking into that.
yeah, if there's any traffic calming, that would be a time to address it. We'd be able to do, I think most of what we do now is speed bumps or some form of
Yeah,
Yeah,
and when we talked about it in one of our shared joint meetings with Ped Bike, it seemed like maybe a slightly greater interest might be small traffic circles at the intersections, more so than speed humps, but
Yeah.
you know, obviously that all needs to have you guys take a look at what you might recommend for traffic calming.
Mhm. All right, but
All
good
right.
question. Yeah.
But I think this looks good, and I would recommend that we refer the draft plan to Plan Commission and recommend to Finance and Common Council approval of the 5-year street improvement plan.
Is there a second to Robert's motion?
This is Susan. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that's what we will recommend to Finance and the council and forward to the Plan Commission.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Sean. That was well done.
Thank you.
Thank
It does look like we have some utility work from Maple Street down to Gateway South, so about a block and a half.
Oh,
What
was
is
that
that,
part
water
on the
main?
plan?
Pardon?
I thought that part was east of the, oh, here you're saying.
Yep, yep.
There might be
That
utility
section.
work.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, we'll take a look at that.
Yep, I'll talk to Dave. All right. All
Very
right,
good.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Sean. See you tomorrow. That gets us back to the North Mendota Trail final design for phase 3. Phase 3 already. Time flies. So Mark Opitz has been working on this with a lot of help from Dan Ramsey, and KL Engineering has been doing the design of these phases. This would be from basically the east leg of where Highland Way meets Century Avenue, all the way out to the east city limits, including a crossing of County Q, to convert that sidewalk into a multi-use path, same as the other 2 phases. There are some real estate issues still ongoing that Mark and Dan are working on, but the final plans were close enough to ready that we want to get them final comments so that they can make some changes and get the package ready to bid.
Welcome, Gayatri.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, can we, Sean, take a look at the drawings of that for,
Sure. I just want to make a note here. I missed you jumping in, Gayatri, and
she
thanks for
just
that.
jumped and I caught it, so.
I appreciate that. So let me get down to the drawings. Phase 3. Here we go. Okay. So for the most part, I put some comments in sort of these, I'll say, orange boxes with suggested edits. We can zoom in on any of them because I know how frustrating this can be to try to look at tiny text on a plan. But for the most part, Bill Beesman, who's the principal over at KL Engineering, said he's looked through these. He's going to not have any problem making any of these changes. We did have one design issue that we talked about as staff this afternoon and gave him some final direction on that, which was one of the, at Dollar General, there's an overflow that goes down some riprap from their parking lot to the sidewalk. And he's proposing to put in a little 2-foot manhole effectively with then some 4-inch pipes that drain out into Century Avenue. it won't take a lot of water, but it might keep some of the routine nuisance spillovers from going onto the path. I haven't heard of complaints on this sidewalk, but it seems like where we have persistent water running across paths, that's where we tend to start getting growth and slippery conditions and mud. And so we're trying to avoid some of that so that it really needs to be a somewhat bigger rain before it spills over and goes over the path. Was there any page in particular, Bob, that you wanted to look at or zoom in on?
No,
Okay.
no, I just thought the committee might like to look at the drawings. This, Sean, assuming they get the real estate issues ironed out, when would this be constructed? Can that still be constructed this year?
That's
Or-
the intention, yes. So if the property gets lined up, we should already have bids, kind of just awaiting that, so that we could get started yet and hopefully get it done before the asphalt plants close. So, and this is a pretty good typical cross-section of where there's retaining walls. Sometimes that tends to be just outside of the right-of-way line in permanent easement. So these would all be private walls, but then public path with, I think it's typically 5 feet to the back of curb. So a lot of this is in kind of where they, well, it's awful narrow over there. It's
Yeah.
a 2-lane road that turned into a 4-lane road without the right of way to make that happen.
All right, committee, any questions, comments with respect to the drawings?
This is Robert on the Highland Way and Cedar Ridge Road. I guess I call it like when the bikes have to take to the road. Is that anything that we need to discuss? Like how the roadway will be? I assume is that a share row? Where, yeah, that thank you for pulling up that picture. I mean, I see all the signs, directional signage everywhere in that block or two.
And you can just barely see some little ants crawling along here. Those are the Sharrow painting marks.
Got it. Is there anything that concerns you or is unstandard with any of that?
Well, I just noted that really they could probably use an extra sign for westbound bicyclists on the path to tell them you need to get onto the street now. I think it'll be widely ignored and that people will just ride on the sidewalk for this 1 block to get back to the path.
Sure.
Ooh,
But that's okay. We're going to do what we can to give them an option for a somewhat better experience than that. So, and pavement markings being what they are, if somebody comes up and says, there'd be a better way to do that or a different way to do that, or I'm not finding this intuitive, it's pretty easy to change later.
Sure.
But this does look reasonable to me.
Okay.
okay.
So the part between the two Highland Way entrances onto Century Avenue, that even after the path is all finished, that's going to remain sidewalk?
This will
Yes.
remain sidewalk, yes. This 1 block between the Highlands, we couldn't get all of the property owners to agree that this should become a path, and that is privately held backyard. So if it wasn't everybody, it was nobody.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
Would have made much more sense to have the path just go straight through there, and it would have relieved, I assume, all of those property owners of snow removal duties on that path or whatever.
Which
Yeah.
doesn't mean in 10 years, people won't change their minds or different folks might move in, so you don't give up on these things, but man, if we can get most of it, that's a pretty big win.
Yeah.
okay. Sean, how wide is the terrace in that area?
I don't.
Is it like 2 or
know.
3 feet like most of the rest of Century?
It feels always like it's closer to 4 feet.
Okay.
Although when you're when you're walking
When you're
next to somebody
standing there,
driving
it looks
30
like
miles an
2.
hour, everything feels too close.
Yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
don't know.
If that's, I mean, just looking at the picture here, if that sidewalk is called a 3-foot width, maybe one of the narrower sidewalks, then it looks to me like the green space between the sidewalk and the road is, yeah, maybe
4 feet.
4 feet, 4 to 5 at 5 at most. So it's probably not 2 feet, but yeah, it's probably not a lot of space there.
Yeah, and Sean, I think that your suggestion's a really good one. Like, I think that's important to tell people, like, okay, yeah, the bike path is now this way. Yeah, I think that's a really good addition. And I'm assuming that that's the same thing on the other side. There's a sign already.
I think they had one there. Yeah,
Yep.
tell eastbound bicyclists, oh, by the way, you're going to want to turn left and get
Yeah.
onto the street.
Well,
Yeah,
I would-
so Bill said he doesn't have any trouble making these changes, and there was, like I say, that one stormwater design issue that I think there are more robust solutions out there, but they were costly enough that for the scale of the problem, I'm not sure the money would be well spent. So,
Well, this is Robert. I would make a motion that we approve the final design drawings contingent upon resolution of staff review recommendations.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second to Robert's motion?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And this doesn't have to go anywhere else, right? This is just our approval?
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me head back to our agenda here. Okay, so we're up to an ordinance change for stop control on Tribeca Drive at Parmenter Street. I'll zoom in just a bit again here for you. There, that's a little better. And this, I think, because we changed project managers due to retirement, was just not picked up earlier. Obviously, the street is there, the stop sign is there, but the ordinance change never got taken to the council. And while looking for something else, I noticed this. So that's why it's here. Really probably should have been here closer to a year ago.
Okay, this is Susan. I would move approval.
We have a motion to approve that stop sign. Is there a second?
This is Carrie, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. And we're so efficient that this is already done.
Well, stop signs there, right?
Stop signs
Well,
there.
the ordinance changed, but I mean, we don't have to direct any work here. That's been there for some time. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll get that to the License and Ordinance Committee then. And next up is Terrace Avenue.
Terrace
Request for
Avenue.
I'm sorry?
Nope, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh.
just
Okay,
talking to myself.
well, that's all I need is someone else to make me hear the voices. So Terrace Avenue, there was a request to consider a mid-block crosswalk between Parmenter Street and Middleton Street. But then Kathy Olson, who's still on the call with us tonight, heard from several other neighbors that questioned whether that really is a neighborhood need. with a preference instead to put in pavement markings for a striped crosswalk at the intersection where Terrace Avenue meets Middleton Street, at the far east end of Terrace Avenue.
Right at the bend.
Yeah, right at the bend. I think I'm just going to go to a sketch because it might be easier before I lose myself. And so I put this sketch into packets where this is our interlibrary sidewalk, I guess I'll call it, with the railroad crossing. Parmenter Street's off to the left here. There are a couple of bus stops at the west end of the project, a couple of bus stops near the east driveway of the Terrace Avenue parking lot. And then over here is the sidewalk crossing at the east end of Terrace Avenue, just past the intersection with Middleton Street. And so it seemed like, from what I'm hearing, there's actually a preference that we would mark this. Now, that's not on the agenda tonight because I didn't have time to amend it, but we could look into that on a future agenda if the committee wants. Right now, it's not striped because our policy says at uncontrolled intersections, we don't mark crosswalks.
Go ahead. That is a de facto crosswalk, though. There are ramps on both ends of that.
Yeah.
And I walk that all the time. And that is a fairly dicey spot right there, because when you're a pedestrian walking north toward the library and city hall and downtown, you see traffic coming from the left, but you have to look behind you to see traffic that might be coming from the right into that crosswalk intersection. I think it would be a great idea to stripe that crosswalk and put up the appropriate signage to note that it is a crosswalk.
Does it need
I
the
agree.
flashing lights?
What?
Does it need the pedestrian activated flashing lights?
I don't know. I don't know if there are criteria for that, in terms of what the traffic volume has to be. I don't know what the traffic volume on that sidewalk is, but it's fairly frequently used, and it's, people are walking. Personally, I think they're just going to continue whether you put a mid-block crosswalk down there or not. A whole lot of people are just going to cross the street at that curve anyway, because they just
Right.
keep looking straight ahead. And that's what they've done for umpteen years. That's what they're going to continue to do.
I
So
guess
I think
my concern is though just making it a little safer for the pedestrians.
Since this isn't noticed, we probably shouldn't talk too much about that. But personally, it's something we can discuss in the future. But I would, well, first of all, if Kathy's still on the line, did she have any thoughts or comments that she would want to add?
I would just comment that someone brought this to my attention, and it's always my favorite, just bring it to the committee that can discuss it. And I reached out to 7 of the neighbors, and I did talk to 2 of them in person, and I got 4 emails back, and another one just wanted more information. And when I sent this out, it didn't, at that time, before I saw the packet, I didn't address that there would be parking spots removed either, which might weigh into their conversation. But they're just wondering if cars would, they wouldn't cross. It's just what you said, Bob, is that's going to be that's where they're going to cross. They probably wouldn't travel down to the mid block to make the crossing, was one of the comments. Others was they didn't think it was all that necessary. One comment they did give was though that they appreciated the 4-way stop at Middleton Street and South that was approved, because they said that's helped somewhat. And let's see what else. Yeah, they were very nice about it. They didn't know where this request was coming from, so they said if it's like it's not necessary, I guess it whatever, if it was there it wouldn't be the worst thing, but they didn't feel that the traffic warranted it, so, or people would travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. My experience is the same as Bob's, that the place where I tend to cross is at that bend at Middleton Street, turning into Terrace, both to and from. And I guess I would make a recommendation that we do not act on this request for a mid-block crosswalk at this time.
Can I just add one other thing? I know you've made the motion and stuff. I think this was coming because they added a bus stop for the middle school at the Middleton Street and South. So I just wanted to throw that in. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment too, but go ahead, Robert, you can finish.
Well, I've made my motion, but even whether there's a second or not, we can still talk about things like, good point, is it hard for students trying to catch a school bus or adults trying to catch a city bus? Is it difficult for them to get to any bus pickups without a crosswalk? I don't know.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment that I agree that I think we should put on the agenda for the future to put, to add a crosswalk at the corner there, because I agree, my daughters and I, when we walk to the library, we always cross there. When they walk to the library without me, they cross there. And my daughter does get picked up on the school bus at Middleton and South. And I know her friends come from Middleton Street on the other side of this map, so further north. And they cross right through, they take that, like what's highlighted there, the yellow route, and then they walk up to the corner and then over to the bus stop. And so, Bob, I agree with what you're, yep, that way. And that is even kind of, can be if someone's going around the corner, when you're crossing that, it can also be a little dicey. So I think a crosswalk would help, some signage would help, just to make sure that, so you're telling drivers, people cross here. I think that would be very important to add.
All right, so we should probably have a second to Robert's motion, which is to,
Well, let me, yeah, I maybe I will change my motion, which is, first of all, I guess I would like to say I'm not supportive of the mid-block crosswalk on Terrace Avenue at this time. So my motion would encompass not pursuing that. And then, yeah, that maybe we, at a future public works meeting, we can look at potentially a crosswalk at that bend where the hand is shown currently on our Middleton and joining up with Terrace.
I have a question for Sean. Sean, do we need to do that at a future meeting, or if there seems to be some consensus to do that tonight, can we just do that tonight?
Well, we would have to waive a policy to do that. And I need a little bit of research too, at what level can policies be changed? Because we have a policy that says we don't mark uncontrolled crosswalks at intersections, whereas we would at a mid-block walk, of course, or at a controlled intersection. So if there's a stop sign or a traffic signal, and I think it gets into overall a balance of safety compared to maintenance. And I can bring that all back at a future meeting when we can talk about it, but I think it's its own agenda item.
Sean, when you bring it back, could you look at the flashing pedestrian-activated flashers? This one bothers me with children crossing on a curve like that. To me, seems worse than crossing Park Street at the creek crossing.
We can discuss that. I in fact, would be happy to discuss that. Right now, I have no guidance in a policy. And I think we should talk about that again.
Okay, good.
Okay. And I agree, Susan. The bus routes were consolidated this year due to the lack of bus drivers. So kids are walking further than they used to, right? This probably wasn't an issue in the past. Like I mentioned, the people living on Middleton Street and Bristol Street weren't walking all the way over here, but now they are.
Yeah.
All right, so Robert has amended his motion, and I'm not sure if we have a second yet, do we?
Not yet.
I will second.
All right, now we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right?
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and Sean, we will look forward to seeing this issue on a future agenda.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thanks, Kathy.
Yeah. That gets us up to our fleet replacement. And Brad Hopwood, our operations manager, as much as Brian Gebhardt, our lead mechanic, have been talking to a lot of folks, including our sustainability coordinator, Kelly, about trying to figure out how best to start getting away from carbon-driven engines to getting into more electric to the degree we can, but even hybrid if that's all that's available for a while. And so they put together, I only put in a couple of tabs of a multi-tab spreadsheet, but they've already had a replacement plan, long-term replacement plan with a focus on 5 years of it. And they went through all of that and tried figuring out for the work duty that various vehicles are, need to provide to us, what opportunities do they see coming at some point in the relatively near term? And so they color coded this and put together. All right. Well, anyway, put together different views. Now I pulled out just the one for public works, which includes the street crew vehicles, the engineering vehicles, and admin vehicle. So it's got all of that. I sorted this really by the target replacement year, and then secondarily by the model year. And I think I might have also then sorted that by division, although it didn't seem to matter very much. So there's only a couple that are both coming up in 2026 that were built in 2018 that just happened to be in streets. So anyway, I pulled that out, but for the most part, I think the focus is on, well, what of those things are green versus what of those things are red, if you will, and then things in between that are more orange are a little bit more maybe. Nobody really knows. And then you'll find two of these are the engineering vehicles. Historically, we've always replaced those with used cop cars, mostly because the price is right, and partly because they don't have to be very dependable. If we're 3 miles away and they break down, we'll get somebody to give us a ride back. But it just stretches out sort of their useful life. We put maybe 600 or 700 miles on these things a year. And it would be difficult, we thought, to justify trying to buy a new electric vehicle for something that gets 600 or 700 miles a year. In 10 years, we still wouldn't have 10,000 miles on it. So anyway, although if cop cars become more efficient and we get the used cop cars, maybe that problem takes care of itself.
There you go. Sean, for the ones that are highlighted green, is it still, so this is like a recommendation to look into the option of an electric vehicle, but will it still depend on budget and cost?
Well, sure, everything's up to budget, but Sustainability Committee, I know, is working with Kelly and putting together a tool to help us evaluate life cycle costs between the couple of, so it's not just the capital costs, it's the operating costs. And I'm sure there are other costs too that are a little bit difficult to quantify, but they're real things. So I know the council's interested in looking at a bigger picture than just capital cost, but part of that direction will lead us into how does that make the 5-year plan and really even the longer term plan wash out. Right now, we're putting about $500,000 into a fund in any given year. If that turns into $550,000 in any given year, that's a budget consideration the council has to factor in. But that doesn't make it infeasible, unless the budget just can't carry the extra capital cost for some reason. But great question. Yeah.
Got it.
All right.
So there was this tab of just all of the general public works stuff. Of course, Parks has their own, but then Utilities has one too. Now that's a different funding source, their own enterprise fund. So we just look at them completely separately. And the harder part has been sort of the heavy duty pickup trucks. It's been a pretty big question mark. If somebody's going to get into that or not, we just don't know. Ford had tried, but then the last I heard they backed out, but that doesn't mean they're not coming back in.
Well, as somebody who owns one full EV and one hybrid vehicle now, I will say that gas prices are probably, right now at least, are probably going to help this conversation with the automotive, the automotive companies. If the price of gas stays high, there's going to be a lot more people interested in buying electric vehicles. So that's only going to push this in the right direction. Again, that's road vehicles. I like looking at this this sheet, the utilities replacement schedule. I'm not sure how, if a Vector truck, that may be something that's going to be a long time before that's low hanging fruit for the companies that make 8 of these a year, for them to convert over. But we'll see. I can see that one might not happen as quickly, but for things like Ford F-350 utility box trucks, I think there's going to be growing pressure from their customers to start having options that are going to save people gas costs. So that's helpful and hopeful for the future. Can we go back to the first Excel spreadsheet again? Thank you.
With the color code key, or?
Yeah, well, no, this one right here.
Okay.
I just want to see, I'm looking specifically in 2022 because I know sustainability is doing some more work and Kelly is doing some more work, and hopefully even in just a few weeks they'll have some more direction. And that direction will really help probably, purchases maybe in 2022, but I see it, 2023 and beyond, where we'll get, more and more options available to us, and that their guidelines will help more and more, in the future as well as in the present. So I just wanted to look specifically at what purchasing decisions we might be looking at even for 2022. And I wanted to ask about I'll call it chartreuse, the greenish yellow John Deere 2755 tractor. Yeah, that, at least on my screen, it's not quite green and it's not quite yellow.
I was going to have to get to Google and look up chartreuse.
Greenish yellow.
It's greenish yellow, yeah. Why is that one not? Can you help at all explain why that's not red? It's not green. It's not yellow. It's kind of halfway between green and yellow.
Well, I don't know why it's not red, but it's already been ordered. Now it might take a year to get here because everybody's building vehicles as slowly as possible. But what we did is decided to just skip having a tractor and instead get a skid steer, just because it's more versatile. So okay. I think Brad probably wanted to highlight, number one, that's already in the works, but it's a whole equipment shift to get to a skid steer instead.
And do you know if the one right below that, the John Deere tractor, has that already been ordered?
I think that it has.
That's what I recalled, was that those two.
Oh, here it says it has.
Oh, well, there
in
we go.
January. But yeah, if we get those this year, that'd be nice.
So I think what it says is there's not a lot of options for what, I mean, there's not much that we're ordering here for the 2022 year. First of all, they may not even arrive in the 2022 year, but we probably can't change what's already been ordered anyway. So I think what I'm hearing about what sustainability is doing is probably going to really be more effective for all of 2023 and beyond. And I would hope that their guidelines and also what's happening in the industry will cause some more of these red cells to become green or at least yellow cells in the future, because I'd love to see more electric vehicles long term.
Yeah, and that's where I think the yellow is leading us towards what seems more hopeful from what the guys are reading. Like when lightnings actually become available, we might actually want one. Now the killer is right now they seem to be focused on building things to market it to residents. Hey, replace your pickup with one of these, right? Well, that's all well and good, but without an 8-foot box, it limits what we can do with it, because we're not just driving it to work and back, we're driving it for work. And they seem all about getting the extended quad cabs and skipping the box. We're a little bit geared exactly the opposite way. And right now, they don't seem too interested in that, but they'll get there, because even some private residents that want to buy these things need an 8-foot box.
Right.
Don, what modifications have to happen at the Municipal Operations Center if all of these vehicles, or a good number of these vehicles, turn electric? Have you got the capacity to charge them when you need to?
Kelly met with MG&E and Brad and Brian out at the mock to figure out, well, how do we start, right? Because at the same time, the entire automotive industry is trying to figure out how to change. The charging industry is also trying to figure out how to build these things. If you bought a charger 3 years ago, it's a different beast than if you buy one today. And I expect in 3 or 4 years, they'll be different again, where they just charge better, faster, But if we're going to buy an electric vehicle now, we have to have a charger now. And if we replace it in 5 or 10 years, great. So I think what we're trying to figure out internally is, well, how do we evolve into a different fleet, but then how do we fuel that different fleet? And I don't know that what we would recommend is, well, let's electrify the entirety of all the mock parking spaces right now and start using them in 5 years, because they'll be obsolete by then.
Okay.
So I don't know. Kelly's doing a lot of work on this, and so is Brad, so is Brian. And every time we ask a question, it's hard to find an answer, but at least they're asking the questions.
And I know we've discussed this at the Common Council level too, and there's pretty strong support. I mean, like, we did assign, I think it was around $100,000 of money for infrastructure, charging infrastructure. We're going to get there. It's just, we want to do it smart too, but I'm definitely pushing to see, what can we do this year to prepare us, for more and more of these vehicles becoming electric in the future.
Mhm.
All right, so does anyone wish to offer a motion on this topic?
Do we need a motion?
Well, Mike's
what-
request was that it come through various committees to get to the Common Council. I think in May he was shooting for, so that well prior to putting budgets together, the council will have given direction on how to put budgets together.
So this would be for direction to put the 2023 budget together.
Correct. Yep. And going
Okay.
forward, but yeah.
Okay, not for 2022.
Oh, that budget's set.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Then what sort of motion are you looking for?
Well, a recommendation of these two spreadsheet tabs to get to the council with modification as you see fit.
Well, I would make that motion.
And really the finance committee too.
Yeah,
if you
and
do a
to
budget
the
document, it would,
Council, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, looking at this list, at least for the next few years, I'm not seeing things like Tarco Windy 400 leaf loader may not be something that we have too many electric options, but I hope to be surprised and find that I'm wrong. I hope to find that there are electric options for some of these specialty devices in the near future.
I know,
But for right now, I would second Susan's motion to take this list as at least a starting point for finance and common council to review.
I'm amazed too, because the thing's basically a gigantic vacuum with a fan blade. That seems like low hanging fruit.
Yeah,
Yeah, my company manufactures, goods, and it's tough to switch on a dime sometimes, but it happens. Eventually we get there, and sometimes it happens really quick if all the planets align.
Right? I mean, they made an electric vacuum cleaner.
that's true.
So much better than the gasoline one I'm using inside my home.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So
All right, well, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion with respect to the vehicle replacement plan? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, which is to recommend this plan to the Finance Committee and the Council for future budget consideration and deliberation, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation.
All right. I think that gets us up to our spring newsletter then. Which last year we didn't get done in time, but this year, Ellen Opitz, our new hire for Public Works Assistant, did get this ready. So,
So Ellen did this.
yeah,
Sean, this is a huge improvement over last year. I really like this.
me too.
well,
Yeah,
I'll let her know.
It looks,
Yes, please do.
yeah, reads very, very smoothly.
And it's easy to find the stuff and, it's organized together, and just the single pages is better than all those little columns. And
Yeah. I didn't know paper cups are now recyclable, so I learned something.
Yeah, I had one question, Sean. The pipes, the quick check. I was wondering if there should be like a little introduction to that section. Like, I think the reason why we're telling people to check the pipes is for lead, right?
Well, they used to call us back when lead was in the news every other day, and they'd say, hey, I don't know if my pipes are lead. We never really proactively tried calling people because we have very, very few lead pipes in the city. But people would call and say, well, how do I know if it's lead? And then we would tell them, well, does a magnet stick to it? Does it seem shiny or dull?
Yeah.
You know.
Got it. So maybe could the heading be changed to saying like, wondering if your pipes are lead? Here's a
Oh, yeah,
quick way or
okay.
something,
Right.
just to kind of more clear. Because at first I was like, oh, what's wrong with copper? What's wrong with steel? I kind of was
Yeah.
Like
approaching
they're
it
all
that way.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Carrie, I agree with you. And I think it's important, Sean, to make it clear that these are the pipes from where it connects to the city pipes going into a person's house. Because I
Oh.
understand that the city pipes are not lead.
Right, but their pipe might be.
They're
that's-
in, and
that's
that
where-
could depend on how old the house is.
That might be worth explicitly stating then too, is that no city pipes, our city pipes are not made, are not lead pipes.
Correct.
However, if you would like to know if the pipes in your home are lead pipes, here's a quick check or something, and that kind of captures what we were saying a moment ago, but have a initial statement saying the city does not use lead pipes throughout the city. If you want to check what the pipes are made out of in your own home, here's a quick check.
How to do it.
And also maybe put something, I know current plumbing standards use only copper, I think. I don't know if they still use steel or not.
They mostly use PEX, plastic.
Or plastic or copper.
Yeah, it's really fast to work with.
Yeah, so it might be worth giving them some idea of, you need to determine this based on how old your house is.
They tend
I
to
don't
be,
know.
they tend to be older homes. Yeah, you wouldn't. find
Right,
lead
and that's
in
what I'm
anything
saying. If
in
you have an
modern-
older home, pre-19 something or the other, you really should check this.
I don't know. I feel I hear what you're saying, but I think trying to add the age of a home into things starts making the waters muddier rather than clearer.
Well, we have discussed this in Middleton Hills because there was a house that was built that had some sort of the wrong kind of solder and everything was turning blue. And there was a lot of discussion about it and blaming it on the city water.
I
So,
haven't heard of that, and I still have some old lead solder, but I haven't heard of it turning anything blue.
I think it was more that it was copper and it wasn't a really good quality of copper. Because it turned out to be one single house.
Sean, is it accurate to say for sure that there are no more lead services in residences in Middleton?
I couldn't
they
say
all-
that because we don't go into every house and look
Right.
at every pipe in every house. And I mean, just because parts of it have been worked on and modernized doesn't mean it doesn't have some lead in it.
So you don't want to say there are no lead pipes in Middleton.
No,
No.
but what I'd like to say is
City's
the city
responsibility.
does not
owns
use
them.
lead pipe.
But your pipes may or may not be, and here's how you can check to find out.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's pretty simple, I would think, to revise and make that clear.
And,
Yeah,
and
I think
Susan,
too.
go ahead,
I'll
Sean.
work with Dave on that maybe, but yeah, I think it would be fair to say the city doesn't use lead pipes, but an older home might have some lead pipes.
Mhm.
And if you want to check, here's some
Right.
guidelines for checking what your pipes might be made out of.
Correct.
I think that's fair. And the only caveat I have to the little story you told, Susan, if, this is for checking pipes. If you want to check every single solder joint between pipes, I'm not sure this even applies anymore.
Right.
So,
Nope.
again, it starts getting complex if you start saying, well, I checked my pipes and the pipes are copper, But then right at this junction, then they soldered two pipes together. And how do I check that? And I'm like, oh, geez.
It's shiny and white or
Yeah, I don't know that I want to get into a guideline that starts talking about how to check every
that I would
single
agree with.
soldered pipe.
Right. I mean, I've got copper
need to
pipes,
call
but
a
I'm
plumber.
certain that they're lead joints.
Sure. So let's just talk about the main pipe materials, which we are here. So yeah, I think this is a good catch, Carrie. So if you, I mean, if Sean, if you can take our guidance, talk to whoever you need to talk to, but I want to say the city doesn't use these. It doesn't use
Wouldn't
lead.
it just be simpler to change the title, the subject line to say, quick check if your water pipes are made of brass, copper, galvanized steel, or lead,
No,
instead of adding the city or anything else?
I don't think so, because really, I don't care. I mean, we don't want people to worry that copper is a danger. It's not. It's really only lead. So that's where we are
Yeah.
changing it. We are.
Yeah,
just
that's why I'm
changing-
saying remove all of that to just say lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Carrie
If your
suggested, and I
pipes are
like
made of
it,
lead.
is, you know, if this up here
And then
just
give
says,
these things below to say, I mean, you scrape and, tell describe how the other pipes would look so they can differentiate the lead from them.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what I'm
what you-
hearing from various committee members is this could, instead of what it says, say, wondering if the pipes in your house are lead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The city doesn't use lead pipes, but an older home might have some lead pipes. Here's how to check.
Yeah, well,
Like
Sean,
that's
you need to
already-
really
yeah.
clarify, the city is the water pipes in the street that go up to your house. Because people don't understand that there's a connection there.
Well, and that's why this is up here gonna say in your house, right?
Yes.
Wondering if the
Yeah.
pipes in your house.
in
are
your
lead.
house, yeah, exactly. So that way we are clear. And secondly, I don't know that we should provide more clarification that involves the city and open the city out for more questions. Suppose they come back and say, okay, you said this, but there was one joint somewhere that was made of lead or something like that.
Yep,
Why open ourselves out to litigation? That is not required. So,
we could skip that part and just say an
Yeah.
older home might have some lead pipes. Here's how to check.
Yeah, I
And
think
who
that
cares
does it.
about the city?
I suppose, but the only reason I kind of wanted to go that direction is the whole Flint, Michigan type stuff.
Right,
If we can say definitively that there's no lead in the city pipes, I'd like to say it.
Yes.
But I
and I
guess
think we should.
I hear Gayatri, I hear your
yeah,
concern.
but can we definitively say that? I don't think so, right? I don't think we have that kind of data available.
Unless Dave can offer me with assurance that none of our remaining cast iron pipe has old lead joints, which that's what they used to make all of them out of, then I'll just skip that phrase.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay.
None of our ductile iron pipe has lead joints.
Okay.
Some of our cast iron pipe might, but we have very little cast iron left. In fact, Middleton Beach Road is going away.
Nice. Okay, well, good catch, Gayatri. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else have any edits for the spring newsletter?
No,
I had one very ticky-tacky one, Sean.
All right.
The bottom of one page, it was the page that had the hazardous there, right there. Stop, go back up to where the dangerous hazardous waste is,
Wait,
right there.
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just seems to me that it would be easy to take the 8 or 9 words that are on the top of the next page and put them down below on page 2. Make another line on page 2 rather than have that page 3 start out with 3, 6, 9, 10.
Yeah.
get it all on one page.
And start the
All
next
right.
page with the electronics recycling. That's my nit that has been picked.
I think that if we can, yeah, that's formatting that probably would help.
All right. Yeah, I know Ellen had some frustration because when I opened this with my version of Word desktop application, it looked completely different than the Office 365 version of Word.
Hmm.
Same manufacturer, same software, different platform, and it looked
Yeah.
totally different.
The
Yeah,
cleanest,
that's why I prefer to use Publisher.
not,
When we used Publisher, all hell broke loose.
Really?
yeah,
It
I
was
don't like
rough.
Publisher, but I have found if I don't want things changing, once I get them where I want them to be, I print to a PDF, and then the PDF is the same for everybody. Doesn't matter if they open it up with
Yeah,
2013
yeah. But
Word
for
or
editing purposes, when I'm dealing with a lot of graphics, then I like Publisher than Word. Word can be a little,
yeah, we just had a hard time. I think if I recall with Publisher, we had a hard time changing text without it ruining the formatting everywhere. Because it's like everything was text boxes or something.
yeah. But
And then
that's
we
the thing, the advantage of text boxes is you have to fit the text within that. Or
Yeah,
you
but it
have
made
to
it
create another
really
text
hard.
box.
It's like you changed anything and then you had to reform, you had to move each block,
yeah.
each text box around, and it was just laborious. So that's why we actually purposely switched more to a Word type document, because then you type all your stuff, you make your changes 3 or 4 different times, and then at the very end you do your cleanup formatting.
Yeah.
Well, all of this is riveting, but it's a little bit away from our agenda.
You brought it up, Bob.
I didn't
You-
know what I was doing. I just wanted to move about 10 words. I didn't need a comparative explanation of every software program that puts out these kind of newsletters. But in any event, any more suggestions, edits for the newsletter?
No, it looks good.
Oh, it does, looks very good.
Look very good.
So
All right.
would the committee want to make a motion to direct its publication after editing, or just by consensus, we'll just make it happen?
Well, what?
I
somebody
would make
a
that
motion?
motion.
You've done it both ways before. There's no right way, so.
All right, we have a motion to publish the spring newsletter with the edits that we talked about. Is there a second to that motion?
I will.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will publish the spring newsletter.
And Sean, please really compliment Ellen.
I'll do that. I mean,
This
I'll
is
stop
so
short
much
of buying
better.
her lunch, but you know.
I think
It's 8
that,
o'clock. 8 o'clock, motion to adjourn.
I'll
I was,
second.
I was just checking, and I think that's everything.
I think it is. All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And Sean, if you didn't get that, I was being facetious, but it's, I think it was